Good afternoon. I call to order the November 5th Student Achievement and District Instructional Performance Committee meeting. For those who are joining us via live stream, if you wish to sign up for the speaking of the public period, please do so now. Make sure you add your name, your topic. You will have 3 minutes to speak following our agenda on our for this meeting. All right, we're going to begin with a presentation, I believe, from Matthew Gellin, Executive Artistic Director, CEO of American Legacy Theater. Mr. Gellin, are you with us? Hello.
Yeah, hi. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me today. Am I able to share my screen? I sure hope so. I wanted to share some visuals with you all. Is this coming up on your screen? You guys seeing this?
Yeah,
Now,
there it is.
it is now. Yes.
All right, perfect. So again, thank you everyone for your time today. My hope to really today in our time together is to really kind of give you a little perspective of some of the opportunities that we at American Legacy Theater have been brainstorming with some internal parties within CPS, and to kind of update you on an up-to-date pilot that we are looking to launch, and hopefully start the conversation about how this partnership can continue to grow in service of our students across the district. And certainly as a parent of CPS students, I'm really eager to see what opportunities of access we can provide for our kids across the district. So really quickly, for those of you who have not had a chance to review materials ahead of time, American Legacy Theater generates inviting, reimagined theatrical experiences for all people to have a voice in enriching society. And we aspire for a day when every American has access to the empathy-building art form of theater and has a respected voice in the room where it happens, really ensuring that everybody, again, has a voice in improving that society together. And at the end of the day, you can boil it down to ALT creates a more equitable tomorrow through accessible theater. So again, this idea of creating access, this idea of creating a more equitable tomorrow is not something we do as an organization. It's not a strategy or a tactic. It is actually inherently who we are. And we truly believe, and have seen it consistently throughout, that if you provide access to people, there, of course, is an opportunity for education, and in this particular case, experiential education. And that experiential education leads to increased value, and that value, of course, will drive a desire for further access. But what also is important is ultimately why. Why does ALT need to exist? And if we really look at the current state of the nation, and unfortunately these numbers are not any different when we talk about regionally, but when you look at the current state of our nation, there is a measurable loss in empathy from generation to generation, from whether it's your baby boomers to your Gen X to millennial to Gen Z, and Gen Z now going into alpha. And as that empathy is going down, we're also seeing these rises across the board in anxiety, depression, isolationism, hate crimes, and other components of inequity. But the good news is recent research that is coming out of James Madison University as late as December of 2019 has proven that the more theater experiences a person has, the greater the empathy is actually attained. So we can start to curb this downward spiral that our community at large is on. So hopefully we can counteract as well those things like anxiety, depression, and isolationism. Because everything we do at creating a more equitable tomorrow places community at the core of what we do. And more importantly, yet not only helps people have awareness around these issues that exist in our community, but more importantly, move them into action to become more civically engaged. When we talk about this program and what more ALT can do to partner with Cincinnati Public Schools, it's important that I call out the key leadership. So certainly there's myself as the founder and the day-to-day artistic director and CEO of the organization. But our board chair is very familiar with arts education as well, and certainly the Cincinnati Public School System. Angela Powell Walker is the artistic director over at the School for Creative and Performing Arts. And our trustee, who is our program and partnership chair, is also Amy Weber, who is the director of community change with United Way of Greater Cincinnati. So again, these two women in particular have very strong understanding of how education, experiential education, can really play a critical role in creating a more equitable tomorrow at scale for students across the region. And the time to start really is right now. So for the past 5 years, American Legacy Theater has a program called Students Create Change that historically has been targeting high school age students and some in, I'd say, early high school, grades 7 and 8 even. And in the last 5 years, these students have written, designed, acted in their own original productions around critical issues important to them. This is not an area in which we really tell the students what they should or should not be doing. We're looking to maximize their passions and their talents so they can create the most effective experience as possible. And what's really important to know is that this is a STEAM-wide initiative and program because there are learning things within engineering and mathematics and science and technology because they have to work with budgets that we give them. They are, so they're supplied with initial budgets. They have to learn those components of lighting effects, maybe even how to make this digitally accessible to a community, in addition to the, of course, arts and production components that you know of. And really what this program can do is unlock the imagination of students, giving them that ability and more importantly, that endorsement to say it's important to dream. And Einstein said it himself, knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world that stimulates progress, helping students understand that there are multiple career pathways in this industry as well as many others, and really kind of gives that entrepreneurial mindset to the students. So when we talk about long-term goals, this was an initial idea that I brought to the table to a couple of people internally in Cincinnati Public School. This, I said, has ultimately spurned the conversations that have led to the start of this pilot. But certainly a long-term goal was around how might we create an opportunity of widespread access where we could reach every Cincinnati public school with professional theater artists bringing age-appropriate productions to them. Because unfortunately, the National Endowment for the Arts has proven that over 90% of elementary schools have no theater programming inside of their institutions, and less than half of the high schools do. So this is obviously just an access point as a major critical data point. But also, not only how do you do a widespread, but how do you have deep impact with the children as well? And there's an idea of saying, how might we complement this to create an opportunity where there are 16 contact hours to leverage in partnership with ALT to integrate into theater arts curriculums across all schools, knowing that the needs of a school like Evanston Academy might be different than that of Withrow High School, might be different than that of Taft, and being able to be flexible in that space. And certainly numbers were initially run and perspective given, and this alone, as it's initially drafted out, essentially could reach 60% of CPS students in any given year in sort of the initial iteration. But what's important is not necessarily where we may potentially end, but more importantly, the conversations to date and where we are right now in November of 2021. So I did share those long-term goals with CPS board member Mike Morosky, who very quickly introduced ALT to Dr. Rudnick, as well as Ms. Pam Bowers, to say, how might we move in a first step forward? And obviously today, ALT is presenting to you, the committee, so thank you again for this opportunity. And at present, ALT is launching an initial pilot phase in partnership with Dr. Rudnick's curriculum for fine arts, as well as activities beyond the classroom. So what is this pilot? we are looking to jumpstart a 2022 pilot kind of in two phases. So phase one takes place in that January 2022 to May 2022 timeline, where we will have two different schools go through the Students Create Change program that historically takes place over 8 weeks in the summer and now spanning it 16 weeks over the last 2 quarters of the school year, with about 90 minutes per week after school with the students. And there was a great question asked of Dr. Rudnick at the time to say, might we innovate this space rather than targeting high schoolers initially? Might we target elementary school students? Might we target early high school? And so that's actually what we're looking to do this coming next 2 quarters, as with the Evanston Academy working with grades 4 through 6 and Woodward Career Technical High School grades 7 through 8. And thankfully, Cincinnati Public Schools was able to commit about half the dollars that are really needed in order to execute this pilot successfully. And ALT is certainly coming up with the other remaining costs to launch this critical pilot that we believe jointly that really has an opportunity to become potentially a mainstay of our relationship together with Cincinnati Public Schools. And phase two really happens probably in June of 2022, where again, rather than having this summer-long 8-week experience, how might we truncate it further into a 2-week process, where we even work exclusively with CPS-only cohorts, so about 20 students per cohort, again, versus that traditional 8-week process. Historically, ALT has always tried to provide full scholarship and subsidy for those who are on free and reduced lunch. And certainly, I would say there was an interest from partnering with Cincinnati Public Schools in that way as well. Although transparently, this increased capacity would certainly need a larger partnership with the school district beyond our current means. Because financials at this time are still being finalized. But historically, ALT has charged about $2,000 per student in order to cover our costs. But like I said, anyone on free and reduced lunch, we have tried to fundraise for accordingly. So really, much of the pilot year of 2022 is kind of in place, ready to go. And certainly there's some strengths, opportunities, and challenges that are presenting us when we look at the year afterwards in evaluation, but things that have already kind of popped up on the radar. The strength certainly is that ALT has the flexibility and experience to build customized partnerships with CPS and other schools within the district itself versus saying, well, this is the one thing we do, and that's the only thing we can offer. There's opportunities. ALT has the ability to bring accessible theater, creating a more equitable learning environment across the district at a fraction of the cost by outsourcing ultimately in partnership with us versus integrating an instructor in every single one of your schools. But of course, the challenge that we're running up against is that the current financial structuring we have for the pilot, which is fine, will work for this pilot year, but certainly might not long term. So my hope is certainly in bringing this to your attention is that something that we can continue to work and partner on together. So more importantly, as we align around the following year and look at its evaluation for improvement and bringing it on into further partnership, this is something hopefully that can be worked together in the budget going forward. So that is really a top lay of the land, if you will. And like I said, I wanted to have the opportunity to bring this to your attention and get the conversation rolling in that sense. Are there any questions you all have for me?
Thank you, Mr. Jellin. Committee members, any questions? Comments? Mr. Lundy?
Thanks, Ms. Bowers. I think thank you so much for the presentation. Just from my perspective, would be curious if you all see this differently. This feels like an important one to ask the administration about. Like if it's something that the administration is excited about, sounds great. I also know we also have some other things we're working on at the moment, but I would probably just defer to what they thought.
Dr. Rudnick, it sounds like you've been in conversation with Mr. Jellin about this, and a couple of our schools are already utilizing these services, it sounds like.
Okay. We will start this pilot program. And again, this was made possible through funds provided by Activities Beyond the Classroom. But we will officially start this pilot program just at 2 schools, like Matthew said. And that will start in January. And we want to see how this goes. We do need to provide more theater opportunities for our students. We have robust music opportunities across the district, robust visual art across the district. We don't yet have robust theater opportunities across the district. So we would like to see how this pilot goes and do a thorough evaluation of it. But we're excited about providing this theater opportunity to these 2 schools.
So with that being said, just for clarity, ABC is funding this program at the 2 schools, but because we know it's not a sustainable, ongoing situation, the ask would be for the district to provide funding if this goes well based on outcomes and data to extend it past these 2 schools.
We have not put together the budget for 2022-23. So, you know, our idea is to see how these 2 things go, to see if ABC is able to cover some additional financial commitments for 2022-23. It's too early right now for me to tell you, you know, what the ask of CPS would be, and we're trying to get other kinds of funding to take care of this.
I appreciate the clarity. Ms. Bolton?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Having spent 35 years in high school theater, you know that I'm terribly supportive of having much more access to theatrical arts. I do agree totally that a play production, so to speak, is a small village where all kinds of skills are required and great diversity occurs of skills and competency. So I'm very appreciative of the pilot. Where I taught and did theater, the school was too small to have it actually be in their curriculum. So everything had to happen after or before school to have a serious theater season. I'd be interested in knowing, as a board member, the inventory of what schools have any kind of theater access. I'd like to see that inventory. K-12, because I think there's some purpose for younger kids to be involved with it early, because I think it's important. So I'd like to see that. I don't have any opposition to the pilot. As a person that is also a board member at Wordplay, this takes years to build access into this district. It takes years. So looking at the short term, it's highly improbable that something giant's going to happen in 2 years or 3 years. Wordplay has been working on this, doing school by school and putting themselves in the market of the school dollars, and is progressing and is doing well and fabulous service. So I would suggest that we need to know, are we talking about an in-day school day? Are we talking about after school, before school? Are we talking about our summer scholars effort? I think I'm a big supporter of ABC, and it's wonderful that they're beginning the funding, but usually they're the ones that keep funding. It's not like we usually absorb what they can't do. They usually take care of what we can't do. So there's lots of questions, but I'm super happy to have a pilot. I do believe there needs to be theater access. I'm working under the assumption that we have a deficit of it. I would like to see what we really do have, but this is not going to be quick. Got great people on your board, for sure, people that have great credibility with all of us, but it's a school by school thing, because these usually come out of school budgets rather than district budgets, if I'm correct. So interested to pursue the pilot and see the results, but we need those additional pieces of information. Thank you.
Any other questions, committee members? Mr. Jellin, I thank you for your presentation. I look forward to seeing how things roll out with Evanston Academy and Woodward High School, and Dr. Rutnet will keep us abreast of how that's going. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we have an adjustment in our schedule, and I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning. Our agenda item number 3 is going to come before agenda item number 2. Ms. Emily will carry on with that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am excited to introduce this next presentation. We have special guests alongside us from our nationally renowned Blue Ribbon School, Evanston Academy. We have Ms. Childs, who is a teacher, Ms. Relier, a teacher, and Ms. Hill Simmons, who is a current Director of School Leadership, former principal of Evanston. So a couple months ago, in September SAC, we were asked to come back with an update on our assessments that we are using as part of our accelerated learning plan. And so this is all centered around student-centered decision-making. And as Interim Superintendent Amat talked about in CAL on Wednesday, it's centered in our work to ensure every child, regardless of circumstances, has access to on-grade level, high-quality, standards-aligned curriculum and instruction. There are 4 components to the work that we are doing to accelerate learning. That is to ensure that we have safe and inclusive spaces for our students, high-quality materials, resources, and instruction, just-in-time interventions across all of our tiers, and progress monitoring. So assessments that on a 2-week frequent basis, we can say, how are our students doing and how do we need to address needs moving forward. Next slide. So I wanted to give a snapshot as the request was to give an update on ELA assessments. We currently have across the district a usage rate of 30%. This is a statistic that we think have multiple reasons for. So, for example, our K2 ELA, our students need to take the assessments paper pencil. We've been in the middle of a pandemic where kids have had access to technology, but not necessarily the work to learn to write. And so we're working on a way for our systems to talk with one another around that. And our essential next step is to increase usage. So this is a single classroom in our district, but this is what ultimately our 2-week cycle assessments can help us do. They can help us see over time how our students are progressing towards mastering on-grade level work. Here's another example of social studies. This is our current mastery rate of social studies across the district. And then we have also invested in reading and math specialists, and so their work is essential for their caseload of students. And ultimately, the work that they do will help increase our students' mastery on that tier 1 material. Now, because we are in this space, we wanted to make sure that we shared why this is so important. And we look to national research, but more importantly, our Blue Ribbon National School and what they did. And so I'm going to pass the baton to Ms. Stacy Hill Simmons.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stacy Hill Simmons. I'm one of the directors of school leadership, formerly the principal at Evanston Academy. I am excited to stand with the ladies. I brought some friends in from Evanston Academy today so we could talk a little bit about the Evanston Academy experience.
Mrs. Hill Simmons right away.
This is fabulous. You have set the bar for all of us. On behalf of the Eastside Cluster, we present you with this gift, the National Blue Ribbon School.
It's all about the people who make the work happen. I'm so proud of you guys. Hats off to the East Side for always showing up and showing out. But more importantly, hats off to Evanston. I'm super proud of you guys. So I can't tell you, no matter where I go, I don't live in the city proper. I travel around the country. I live out in a school district outside of Cincinnati. People are constantly asking me how we did it. How did you do that? How did Evanston take a small neighborhood school and perform at the rate that the kids perform in the district that I reside in? And go ahead and give me another slide, please, sir. And it's interesting because even here in Cincinnati Public, there's a belief that there's a magic potion or a shot or a pill that I can give folks, but it really isn't. It's best practices. So if I had to really lay out what we've done at Evanston, I would say we focused on 3 big rocks. One being, next slide, please, sir. One being a culture of high expectations, utilizing consistently classroom walkthroughs with feedback so that everybody grows, not just the teachers, so that the principal grows, the leadership, everybody grows. And lastly, we used our own data that we created, affectionately known to us as mock assessments. We used that data for probably 15 years. We gathered our own data and we distributed those assessments to our kids periodically, routinely, and we use that data to drive the work. So the ladies will talk more about that. I just want to talk about creating a culture of high expectations. One of the things that I've loved by being at Spending all that time at Evanston Academy was the spirit of shared leadership. So it wasn't just a principal. I was fortunate enough to work with some of the best talent in the district showing up as leaders. And we moved that work together, not just the principal making the decisions. We all worked to do what was best for the kids in our watch care. Evanston has a culture of accountability for not just the principal, not just the teachers. We made each other accountable. We made our parents accountable. We made our students accountable. And bigger than anything, one of the things that was really powerful at Evanston is a climate and culture where we did not make excuses. We're living in a time where you hear a lot, these kids can't. You will never hear that at Evanston, because the goal is to figure out what we can do to make sure that the kids were able to meet with the academic success that we know they deserve, and then we committed to doing so. I was fortunate enough to work with the staff who was committed to that and was able to block out the outside energies. We made it about the kids and the kids only. We tuned out everything else that made efforts to stop that from happening because our commitment was to the kids. But more importantly, we had an unwavering expectation that winning was the only option because the kids we served deserved that. I was fortunate to spend 19 years of my life at Evanston. I am better having been there. I feel like the staff there is some of the best folks in the game and go unrecognized. So I'm so honored to be here and have been waiting for folks to call so we could tell our story, because what happens at Evanston, what happened during that time, is something that should happen for every one of our schools, because that's what our kids deserve. So I'm going to turn it over to the ladies.
Hi, I'm Tanya Relier. I'm our primary team leader at Evanston Academy. I'm just going to explain our classroom walkthroughs in a nutshell. They're a little different probably than the way most schools use them. First of all, we do classroom walkthroughs so that our team leaders can glean some information from classrooms. So kind of that real hands-on data, what's happening in classrooms, because we want to help teachers on our team and we want to learn. So we go into classrooms, really probably once, I would say once a month, every 6 weeks or so once we get going. And we do this by team. So we'll do primary team one day, intermediate team another day. And all the team leaders, not the principal, just the team leaders, will use a form that teachers have seen in advance and just do a walkthrough through classrooms. They're not evaluative at all. They have nothing to do with any teacher evaluation at all. We're just really looking for ways that we can help. The principal never sees the results. We use the results as team leaders to help coach our team and help our team move the work forward, and to figure out how to solve the problems that we have. So what support's needed, where is that support needed? So we use that data as team leaders. That's not used by administration. The team leader collects all that feedback. So if it's my team that we're walking through that day, then I would collect the feedback and I would put it together and email each teacher and let them know what the results were from that walkthrough. So it's not feedback that anybody sees except the team leader and the teachers. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. But it's meant to really just be helpful. And I think really most of our teachers see it as helpful. Then mock assessments was the other. Yep. Our mock assessments, I'll start with how they're constructed and why we do them, what they are. We want data that tells us where students are on their path to being proficient on the state test. So we use our mock assessments to kind of mirror Ohio State test, because we want to be able to see in real time, what do our students know? What do they still need to know? And it's important to kind of take this back to our solutions-oriented culture. where if students do horribly on a mock assessment, which happens, it happens to all of us, then there's no blame, there's no berating or having any problems with any teacher or students. It's just, hey, we have a problem. What do we do to solve the problem? Where's the support needed? That's all it is. It's trying to kind of collect that information and then solve the problems that we have in real time. Our mock assessments, like I said, they mirror Ohio State, about 1 to 2 pages in length, about 30 minutes to an hour to administer. Math goes a little quicker. ELA, we try to have paired text. We try to have some comprehension questions and a writing prompt, and that takes a little bit longer for students to respond to text in a writing prompt. So that the ELA probably does take a little longer. Generally about 10 to 12 questions with varying levels of rigor. So as a teacher, I can decide maybe students are mastering the lower rigor questions, but maybe they haven't quite gotten to the higher levels of rigor. And let's see, I think I got to most of this. The mock assessments are submitted to team leaders for approval, and they're brought to our data meetings, our admin meetings for approval. So we can kind of lay eyes on those. If we need to add some rigor to assessments, we'll just give teachers that feedback where, hey, I see you've gotten to this level of rigor on this standard. We'd like for you to get to a higher level of rigor. So we do kind of try to keep eyes on those. And then what it looks like in the classroom, we read aloud math mock assessments because the Ohio State test will read the test aloud to students. There's no read aloud for language arts because, again, Ohio State test won't do that. We do have many teachers that use EdSite, Edulastic, Schoology. Because the test is online, we do try to kind of simulate the online experience for students. Of course, our students with disabilities receive their accommodations on every mock assessment. And of course, we are reviewing that data with students after they're graded, and then we're doing some goal setting for the next mock assessment.
Hi, Brenda Childs. I'm our school-wide lead teacher. So how we use mock assessments to inform instruction, you have to know what your goal is if you're going to get that target, right? So this drives our instruction. The assessments help us to group students for classroom instruction, stations, small group interventions, and so forth. We group and regroup the children. Flexible groupings are always happening based on the current data. We provide tier 2 and tier 3 interventions for our students, and they are all involved in our school-wide interventions, such as mini labs, math labs, our writing labs, our red binders, and so forth. We also provide enrichment experiences for the children who are at the accelerated level because we believe that all students must demonstrate growth at every level. We also use our data to recommend students for our after-school tutoring program called the Study Tables, and we use our data to prioritize students for additional support when we have volunteers from the community. So we use that in a variety of ways in the classroom. Additionally, mock assessments help us to monitor and to adjust our instruction. Again, you can have the best teaching in the world, but if you have not focused that instruction towards your goal, you'll never reach it. You'll never reach that target. Our weekly admin meetings help our teachers to look at their data. We provide that structure for them. They're there to collaborate, strategize. The admin meetings, let me back up a little bit, comprise of teacher teams, intervention specialists, reading specialists, myself, the lead teacher, and our administrator. And together we strategize and prioritize things that need to happen based on our data that we have. current data. The teams develop strategies for the identified teams of the students that we see, their learning deficits, and also provide ways to grow and challenge our children again at the accelerated level. All our students learn and grow. We have a variety of school-wide initiatives that have been worked out of the needs of our students based on our data. The mini lab, as we mentioned before, that is our first bell, actually, of intensive, rigorous instruction for our students, homogeneously grouped, and they work in small group setting with an instructor on their skill levels and deficits, areas of need in the reading language arts. Our math lab occurs during the week, 1 to 2 hours a week, again with hands-on activities with children based on their needs, based to support what they are learning in the classroom and to really bring home that learning for them. Our writing lab was birthed out of the need of our teachers needing to know how to teach writing and our students needing to know how to write. So we've been using our own writing lab initiative based off of the painted essay for the past several years with great success. And it's carried out throughout kindergarten through the 6th grade. Red binders are used strategically to hit those heavy hitting skills, the ones that the children have not yet mastered, and take them through those skills toward mastery. And they're very effective when we're doing learning teams, small groups. Volunteers that come in might sit one-on-one and work with the children through those particular skills. Our data talks, the children actually see their own data, own it, look at it, help make their own goals toward learning, and their parents are brought in at least quarterly to see that. They have an opportunity to meet with the principal and talk about their progress, talk about their goals, where they could improve, what they see as what they've done successfully, how they can make their own, own their own learning. So they get very excited about that and the opportunity to talk to their teacher or their principal and their parents one-on-one about their success and their goals. So our professional development, lastly, is born out of what our students need and what our teachers need in order to help our students be successful. And we have those professional developments in-house. Mrs. Hill Simmons has graciously relinquished most of the staff meetings to professional development opportunities based on the needs of her staff. So all of that, last one here, helps us to meet our goal. And on the last 3 normal years, as you can see, we continue to grow and progress and increase skill-wise, score-wise on these assessments from one year to the next. We've seen continued growth last 3 normal years, and we hope to continue on doing that. Okay.
I want to end by saying, was it easy? No, not at all. There are growing pains. Whenever you make a shift like this to going against what's popular and doing what's right, it's a level of discomfort. I understand right now we're about 30% usage for 2-week short cycle assessments. Well, when I met with the principal at Evanston this morning, I want to say they're up in the 90s, but they're still doing mock assessment because this is what got us there. I think I look at Evanston and I'm like, we should have duplicated many of the things that were done there years ago because much of this isn't rocket science. It's not me. The teachers and the paras there are the best in the game. And I've always had to salute them for having the courage to make the hard choice because it's okay when it's me because I'm I'm okay with being picked on, but I feel bad when they have to be picked on. But it's a great strategy. We're doing some of those things now. It's just about what commitments we're willing to make to move the work.
Thank you, Ms. Hill-Simmons and Ms. Childs and Ms. Relier. Like they mentioned, we've talked about the why. Every child, regardless of the school, regardless of the classroom, regardless of other circumstances, deserves and should receive on grade level instruction. This is going to take time, and so we have really unpacked the how, and that really lands into how we're going to support this united CPS team. So this is a graphic on one big support structure that we have this year, where we're asking for our students to know where they are on track and what they need. Teachers and principals host data meetings where they talk child by child. How are they doing and what do they need? And then we ladder that up to principals meeting with departments. How are things going? What do you need? All the way up to Ms. Amat and our board. This again is going to take time, and we are excited to stay the course. Again, this just outlines some of those things that we are doing to support our staff in this work to flip from a culture of remediation to a culture of acceleration. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Thank you for your presentation, ladies. I have some questions, but I want the committee to go first. I just thank you so much. And on the blue ribbon piece, of course, that's remarkable and wonderful. My recollection, I think, is it only Kilgore that is a blue ribbon in Cincinnati Public? Yeah, outside of Evanston. So, like, I think that's true. I'm not trusting my memory is a dangerous thing to do.
There's was probably our most recent prior to Evanston, and that was 20 or 21 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think Mary Ronan was principal at Kilgore, and that she to watch out. Can I just have a clarification on the three assessment charts? Does that work for you? The first grade ELA, I understand that. Is this all of our first grades?
That is one classroom. It's an example of what we're going to be doing with our assessments, using them over time.
And then the one that's the performance on social studies, biweekly assessment.
Yep.
On that chart.
That is the students across the district, but if you look at the N size, we know we have 36,000 children, and that is at 975, I think is the last N on the bottom axis.
And then the final one is the third grade percentage of caseload demonstrating mastery of critical area focus. But am I missing who that would be?
So our math specialists and reading specialists work to identify a caseload of students that is approximately 45 students. And so that represents the caseload of students at the third grade level who our math specialists are serving right now.
Okay.
So our third grade students that our third grade math specialists are serving across the schools across the city.
Thank you for that clarification. And again, on the blue ribbon piece is good. Some of this is very reminiscent, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, to aspects of the elementary initiative, with the focus on particular schools.
So I wasn't,
but it's only some of it.
So I think Ms. Hill-Simmons could probably speak to that much more, because I know she was greatly involved in it. However, the concepts of accelerated learning, teaching grade level instruction, ongoing assessment, looking at the assessment to alter the instruction to meet the need of every student, providing intervention for those students, accelerating those students, Those are the same components that we're talking about today as well. And it's not only for our students, but also our teachers when they come together, that they are able to analyze the data and talk about instructional strategies that are working. And then it's the same way for our building principals as well. But Ms. Hill Simmons can talk about the EIP process because she was greatly involved in that as well.
So yes, definitely I was involved. If I had to guess, if I had to say any one thing that is different, what we did with EI, we did more hand holding. And it's the concept of, at Evanston, the teachers are, we pour into them. We pour into them. It's the concept of teaching a man to fish. And that man will eat long term. Whereas in EI, I don't feel like we did enough teaching. So essentially when EI went away, so did some of those wins. And we owed those teachers because they'd invested so much time. I just don't, I think we just did, that would be the one thing I think we didn't do as much as we should have, just teaching the teachers in the deficit areas that they identified where they wanted to get stronger. We might have spent a little more time on trying to get those quick wins. If you track the history with Evanston, it's systemic. Evanston has gone up every year for probably 12 to 15 years because those teachers have the skills. Stacey Hill Simmons hasn't taught anybody's baby in 20 years. That's the work of these folks because they have the skills and it's what they pour in to the kids. So that would be the one difference. But EI was, there were many great components, but the major difference was we poured into the teachers at Evanston and we poured into each other. And because we poured into each other, they grew skills that will serve that community for years and years and years.
Thank you.
Lindy?
Thanks, Ms. Bowers. I have a couple different things, and I promise I'll be quiet for the rest of the afternoon. But I wanted, I think, first just to acknowledge the enormous power of the story that Stacey and her team and Emily were sharing. I mean, just for folks who may not be as familiar with it, can you say a little bit about what getting a blue ribbon means?
It means that we're in the top % of elementaries, middle schools performance in the country. In the country.
The top what percent?
The top 10%, is it 10 or 5? It's either 10 or 5% of the highest performing schools in the country.
And what percent of students at Evanston are economically disadvantaged?
I'm sorry, I'm hearing impaired.
No, it's my mask. I'm sorry. What share of kids at Evanston are economically disadvantaged?
It's over 90. 98%.
And just out of curiosity, do you know how many schools in the state of Ohio earned that distinction? I looked it up and know the answer. I'm asking the leading question. Sorry, it was 2.
I mean, it's huge.
It was
be 2.
I think two schools, so one school other than Evanston in the entire state of Ohio.
Right.
And I just think that's remarkable. And I circled on the presentation. One of the things he said, just that you get what you believe. You know, I think one of the things that's so powerful every time I hear you and your team talk is that you just deeply believe that every kid can do it and every kid deserves it. And I think you have such a position of power because you're not saying you think it should be true. It is true. And your school's shown it over multiple years. And I think that's just remarkable. And I want to say thank you.
We have this motto when I was there, because it's a neighborhood school with neighborhood challenges, just as any neighborhood school would have. But we didn't come to the meetings. I mean, you have the same problem. Johnny is 3 grades behind. But for us, the motto is bring a solution, because that's just it is. We all know Johnny's 3 grades behind. So what they do better than anybody I've seen, they will get those wheels turning, thinking about what we can do to patch those gaps. It's amazing, but it's not undoable. These are best practices. We can duplicate them anywhere. It's just the commitment of the people who move the work. It's not about me.
So I wanted to say thank you for that. And the last part of this first thing was just, I'm grateful for I think the administration for kind of leading into the discussion about the 2-week assessments via the Evanston story. Because I think one of the most important, I was reading this in a book lately. This is not my line, so I want to credit a different author, but it was, and one of the most important questions we can ask in education is what's working somewhere and what can we learn from it? And this feels like a really wonderful example of learning from something that's happening here. And what can we learn from it? So thank you. I think the second set of questions I had was maybe for Emily, but can you give us a sense, just like big picture across the district, what do you want to be seeing at this point in the year on these 2-week assessments, and how close or far away are we from it?
I think we want to see two major things. One, we want to see an increase in usage so that we can start having those problem-solving conversations about what are we going to do child by child, so that we can say as an organization, when you walk into our doors, you are going to master on-grade level work. So increased usage and these really strong conversations in our data meetings and our academic matrix meetings about what are we going to do? Our children are right here. What are we going to do to move them on grade level work? And what are we going to do just in time to catch those up who have unfinished learning?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of, if we look ahead to, I don't have an expectation that we like necessarily do this every single month with you all, but I do think like at least one time or more before the end of the year to get an update on what you're seeing with these. If you were to look ahead to whenever that is, 2 months, 3 months, whenever, what would you hope to see when you look across the district?
I think I would hope to see that we have an increased usage and mastery in January. Like, I don't know if we could do a quarterly update on how we are doing and what supports and next steps are doing. And then March and then the end of the year in anticipation for the following year.
And so where would you want usage in March?
95%. Also, that's, yeah.
Cool. That's great. I don't know that if I have any questions there or not yet. I think just thank you for all the work that you're doing on this. I think that the last set of things, I did have a good conversation with Julie and Kendra, I think, about some of the concerns that they raised on some of these. And so I just wanted to give some airtime to that and give you all a chance to respond to some of the concerns. And I think I'll share with you what I shared with them, which is I think I do believe in what this is. I also think it's important to do it well, and I have seen versions of it that are not done well. And so some of the concerns that they raised, if true, I do think are important to talk about, but I wanted to bring them up and give you all a chance to respond to them. So one of the concerns I think was how long the assessments are taking. I think, and so some would love to hear from you all, talk a little bit about that and how are we checking, for example, the assessments are kind of cabined to the right amount of time. Another concern was assessments being unaligned. So a student in, say, grade 1 or 2 getting a passage that was written on a 5th grade level, or I don't know, I can imagine other kinds of misalignment, but is that happening? What's the check to make sure it's not happening? And then I think the last one was unique to special education. You know, like is there some concern that the additional testing crowds out service hours for students on their IEPs? I just having seen the data from Evanston, I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves because you see the special ed improvement every year. But I would love actually to get a chance to hear from you all on that a little bit.
So I'm totally receiving what the ladies are saying. What I can say as it relates to, I want to talk a little bit about students with disabilities. I have a daughter who has a 504. So one thing that my husband and I always say, and this is something that I really kind of stole from Evanston, a typical kid instructionally should get X, but a kid with an IEP or 504 should get X plus. What Evanston did was we gave a lot of pluses to the kid who's already behind. But the way that we determined that was not just the IEP. We used the data that we collected in our mock assessments so we can know what plus looked like. We didn't address plus in the dark. I'm hearing what the ladies are saying too, so it's definitely worth investigating. But what I can tell you that I know for sure, if you use assessments properly, systemically, and routinely, you can use that data to move the work. In a nutshell, that's what we did. We didn't have any magic dust. There was no fairy godmother blessing the kids. It was the old school version of getting on a scale, seeing the numbers too high, and not eating chocolate that day or the next day or the day after that. We went with what the data said. You have to be able to collect that some way. But I'm hearing everything you're sharing.
Thank you. And then to address time, our 2-week cycle assessments are curriculum based. And so therefore they are part of the instructional flow of the regular lesson. In math, science, social studies, those are all typically 15 to 20 minutes. For ELA, they can be longer because of the writing and some of those things that we're learning from our ELA assessments is the significance in teaching those lessons leading up to it. In some cases, they are cold read assessments where a child has not read that passage before, but in some cases they are texts that the children have been reading and dialoguing about for several days that those questions come from.
But it's also experiences like this to help you get better. We have to have the dialogue. We have to have the conversations so we can get better and lean in and try to make a better product for the kids that we service.
And the final piece I'll say about the time alignment and students with disabilities is we do have regular council meetings once a month where these things are put on the agenda to dialogue with our teacher leaders. I think one of the things that we heard loud and clear from Ms. Valier and Ms. Childs and Ms. Hill-Simmons is the value of the teacher perspective and how important it is that we learn how is it going, what is it that you need on a regular basis by content and act.
That's great. I appreciate it. And I guess I just, on this, the assumption I'm making too is, let's say a teacher has a concern about a particular assessment, because I think mistakes can happen in any organization. Something's the wrong grade level, it's the wrong whatever. There's somebody they can talk to about that, get it fixed.
Absolutely. And we have a process for it as well. We have a survey that teachers can access anytime to elevate those concerns or ask for support. And they can reach out to their managers or me or Chrissy Reeves in our Diverse Learners department.
Thank you.
Ready. All right. Well, I just have a few comments. Ben touched on several of mine already. Thank you. But congratulations on the progression of the scores over 3 years. I think this visual helps me to understand the importance of the assessments and talking about solution oriented process, and I think that's key. And I really love that your peer-to-peer walkthroughs because I know that can be threatening for some teachers, but I like, and I don't know if this is common across the district or is it something that Evanston just does, but I haven't heard of that before until today. But I think I like that, and I would like for more of our schools to adopt that. That will give probably better responses from our teachers. And the data talks. Now that's been around for a minute, because I just remember hearing them in some of the IoT meetings that I used to attend. But with that being said, students being accountable and still them being owning where they are and progress. And I think that's all great. So if no other questions, I thank you for your presentation. All righty, we are going to move to curriculum and instruction. Dr. Rudnick, you're up.
Madam Chair, as the doctor takes position, I think it's one of the sad things about all of this that while we're talking about great stuff, good stuff, is that Evanston, even a blue ribbon school, is one of our 27 under-enrolled elementaries.
Oh.
So something needs to be done to do that. You have a blue ribbon school that is under-enrolled in a growing, thriving neighborhood that has turned the corner more than once. And we have to come to grips with why that is. That's just so critical. You offer the product and we still have that issue.
Good point. Thank you. Nick?
Now, good stuff too.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. To move back a little bit in the mic. It's my pleasure to present on the amazing things that are going on with fine arts curriculum in the district. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Everything we do in the fine arts at CPS involves these 4 artistic processes. These are taken directly from the National Core Arts Standards. Yes, the arts are a core subject. Create, perform, respond, connect. When you walk into one of our music, art, drama, or dance classrooms, you will be seeing one or more of these artistic processes. Next slide, please. Here are the resources that over the last 6 years we've been able to create and provide for our teachers and students. I won't take the time to read through all of this, but you can see that we are now providing robust curricular resources for our artistic teachers in the district. Next slide, please. Something I am so incredibly excited about is our Black Music of America curricular initiative. This is an equitable and anti-racist music initiative for 4th grade students in CPS elementary schools. There's 20 of them without an instrumental band or strings program. Yes, they are getting general music, but they don't have band or strings. And we are serious about destroying the inequities that are currently with us, and this will help us do it. Next slide, please. What will the students be doing in this program? They'll be exploring the music of important Black musicians from the past 150 years. They'll recognize the artistic contributions of important American Black musicians from the past 150 years. They will be able to study this amazing Black music that was created in America, including work songs, spirituals, gospel, ragtime, blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, soul, hip hop. We will give the students an opportunity to truly see themselves in the curriculum and to see what people who look like them have created. And it truly is the music that moved the world. When Europe first heard Louis Armstrong play jazz, the whole continent was just abuzz. Next slide, please. And an important part of this is we will be bringing in guest artists of color, both female and male, to our classrooms. And they will come into our 4th grade general elementary music classrooms, and they will do presentations to our students. They will perform for our students. They will perform with our students. How did we make this possible? We made this possible because of the commitment from CPS. We were able to purchase these instruments, and none of these 20 schools had these instruments, but they will. And starting in January, our kids will be able to explore percussion instruments, drum sets, acoustic guitars, electric basses, brass and woodwind instruments that are really cool and designed for younger players. We want to get kids excited about instrumental music. Next slide, please. So that will start in January, and the district will provide all the materials, and we will begin to really serve all of our schools. And it won't create any extra burden on any of the teachers, and every child in the 4th grade in these schools will get it because we'll be doing it during the 4th grade music class time. At this time, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the artistic programming, a lot of it before and especially after school. So here's a list of some of the things that we have been able to restore in CPS since the pandemic, because we had to move away from a lot of the after school programs, but we've brought them back and we're bringing even more of those back. So this is an example of what is going on. Please, next slide. And something that I'm really proud of, and all of you know I'm incredibly passionate about everything that has to do with the arts, but our after school jazz academy is now up to 95 students. That's a 400% increase over the past 2 years. Students from 25 different CPS schools coming to the Kennedy Heights Arts Center, playing jazz on Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon. Every barrier is removed. Transportation is provided. An instrument is checked out to them for the entire year. After school, an after-school meal is provided free of charge to every student in the program. We are changing what artistic curriculum looks like, not only in Cincinnati, in Ohio, and the Midwest. Next slide, please. I'm also very excited to tell you in about an hour's time, we will be starting the CPS Art Institute. And that 50 students, that's now 75. So at Woodford and at Douglas and at South Avondale and at Chase this afternoon and tomorrow on Saturday, students will be going to these 4 schools, and they'll have the opportunity to work with a master artist to develop their own artistic portfolio of 2D and 3D work. So that when we have our amazing show here in the spring, CPS Citywide, which the superintendent has agreed that we're going to have it right here in the district, you'll be able to see some amazing work of these students. We need to give our kids more than just 50 minutes in their classroom. They need more. They're creative, they're communicative, they're collaborative. We need to give them more. Next slide, please. We just worked this out, but now the Cincinnati Arts Association school time season, you can see the shows there. They will be provided to CPS classrooms for free, and they're on demand, and teachers can show these to their students. And we don't have to pay a dime for it. And a lot of these shows center around equity and anti-racism. Next slide, please. And here are some of the organizations that we have partnerships or we're beginning to start partnerships with. And of course, Ms. Bolton spoke about wordplay, and we're very, very excited about them. So the artistic partnerships are what give us these robust, really rich opportunities for our students. And we will continue to find new organizations to work with. Next slide. We were able to bring in, can you go to the next slide, please? We were able to bring in Franklin Willis, Amy Boltena, and I don't know why Liz Wu's name isn't up there, but I think it went on the next slide. These three great artist teachers. We've already had wonderful teacher professional development by these three great artists. We find when we bring in master artists or teacher PD, it really motivates and it inspires our teachers, and they are able to use elements of the PD for their curriculum and for their students. And we've gotten really phenomenal response back from our teachers. And yes, and then the final thing that I'd like to just mention to you is we've been very, very fortunate. This fall, we wanted to start back up with a flourish, and we brought in three world-class artists, Lauren Sevian, John Clayton, Gerald Clayton. They came to the Kennedy Heights Arts Center, and they worked with our CPS Jazz Academy students, and students got a chance to work with them, listen to them, ask questions, perform. Amazing. And on November the 18th, Thursday, November 18th at 4:30, we will have perhaps the most impressive jazz artist of all come to Cincinnati to be with us. And his name is Terrence Blanchard, and he just won a Grammy Award for his new jazz opera. So we are absolutely thrilled. And with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Brudnick. Committee members, any questions?
I don't know, share this with you, Dr. Rudnick, but as a former jazz band member, this is very cool, and all your players are much better than I ever was. But if there's ever an opportunity to come hear them play, I would be really interested.
Wonderful.
But I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Doctor, you know what I think of you and what you've been able to do. You are a change maker, and that's one of the smartest personnel things that ever happened, was moving you into this position, and more importantly, even creating the division of the curriculum that you cover. It's remarkable.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it, because I know how critical you were and how important you were to SCPA, but now that all of our children get to be served by your commitment, is really important. It's life-changing. I have just a technical question or issue, and really I think it falls probably to the folks at the end of the table down there. I would like to see, again, like an inventory, as we talked about with theater access, because we've all, if you've been here a while, you've lived through, and I know Stacy remembers this, where there wasn't PE, or there wasn't art, there wasn't music, or what we call PAM for every building. And you had to choose among the three. They had to be phased in or phased out. It was a huge staffing issue. And I think this union was very, very important in trying to emphasize that we needed to have properly licensed and certified people doing it. And you can't contract so much of this out, because you need to have that person on site as much as you possibly can. So I want to be able to say, in our superintendent search or whatever, we have art and music and whatever at every one of our buildings. I mean, we sort of say that sometimes. I'm not sure it's totally true, but I think we do need to see the inventory. And I think it's hard for a high school not to have a marching band, even if it's only a small one, as Aikens is small, but it's full of spirit. There are those things. So I think it would be helpful for us to see that, especially for this upcoming budget.
Sure.
Because I know oftentimes that wish budget that the principals and the schools submit often it is for a music class or another music teacher or what have you. And I'm not sure it gets the priority necessarily that maybe some other stuff does by the time it gets to the central office. So I think that inventory would be great. And if I get just one more question, I think the idea of removing all the barriers is so important. The fact that you're feeding the kids, the fact that a transportation is somehow being provided, probably at a more efficient effort than SORTA or Metro have been able to provide service for our children.
Yes.
I think that's critical. And we need to make the community aware because people would really contribute to that transportation and also the federal government for specialized programs. I know this from another board on which I sit, the Cancer Justice Group. Federal government has money for transportation if it's for specialized groups or economically disadvantaged. And I mean, they're paying out the wazoo for that around the country. So maybe we can look at that because I know that is a burden. But thank you so much. This is a great report. We're very proud. You make us very proud.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Dr. Rudnick, as I close out, you and I have known each other a long time.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter via SCPA, the tryouts, we've long time. I am always in awe about your commitment to the arts. I'm especially excited as I'm transitioning out of the board or off of the board, but I'm very excited about the Black Music of America. As a graduate of 2 historical Black colleges, this was everybody had to learn this when we went to school. So just for it to be rolled back into getting into our students at this level is so exciting, and I'm really my heart is excited about that. Congratulations on the growth of the CPS Jazz Academy. That's extraordinary. And as Committee Member Bolton explained, removing all those barriers for our students, so there's no reason why we can't expand, and then acknowledging or informing our community, which is I don't think we do a good job of with all of the things that we do in this district. This is something that should have a star on it and should be out there so that people will say, hey, CPS is still trailblazing. We're still continuing to trailblaze every time I turn around. So again, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your work in this. I was saddened when you left SCPA, didn't really understand the transition, but now I see the reason why the district needed you as overall the whole district. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Madam Chair, if I might,
Dr.
we are
Brown.
super thankful for Dr. Rudnick and his work with our teachers, our students, our communities, and the passion that he brings each and every day, and the excitement that's generated when he shows up at schools bearing instruments. But not only that, the performances are second to none. That if you've gone down to Taft Museum or any other concert, I believe our students outperformed them all. So great job, Dr. Rudnick.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone.
Right, we are on to our next item on the agenda, which was a request of Committee Member Bolton to have an update regarding our Vision 2020 schools.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this won't take very long. It's more addressed for athletics. Yeah, athletics.
I'm sorry, Mr. Harden, I'm sorry, I skipped you.
I thought I was covering.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Please accept my apologies. This is one of my favorite parts too. From the arts to the athletics, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Thank you. Mr. Harden, you are who's on our extracurricular? Is that something, did Dr. Rudnick do that? Is that somebody else too? Okay, Mr. Harden, go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. I'll keep it quick, guys. I know we're running over here, but appreciate you, Board Member Bowers, Lindy, and Bolton. We'll crank through these athletics updates. But I wanted to start, took up notes. American Legacy Theater sounds awesome. Big congrats to Evanston and Stacey Hill Simmons and everything that she's been able to accomplish at Blue Ribbon School. And of course, always following Izzy Rudnick, is difficult. Very powerful stuff with the Black Music of America. Look forward to being involved in that. And want to collaborate on making sure we have more marching bands at these athletic events. Next slide, next slide. All right, elementary athletics is back. We were excited to bring back elementary athletics this fall. As you know, we did not have elementary athletics last year. We brought back ABC soccer and CPS flag football in tandem. We had 20 schools participating in flag football with 270 students and 22 in soccer with 300 students. That picture there you see is the Queens from Roselawn representing the ABC soccer program. We were able to accomplish those things in the fall through our strategic partnerships with Activities Beyond the Classroom, the Bengals and NFL, FCC Foundation, Cleats for Kids, and of course Gatorade. Upcoming for elementary athletics, we've got winter, which will be boys and girls basketball programming and competition, indoor futsal, and then in the spring we'll have volleyball, t-ball, track and field, and tennis. And then on into the summer, we've got a strong partnership with the Cincinnati Recreation Commission to offer more opportunities for our students. Next slide. Junior high and high school participation. As we know, in the fall last year due to COVID, we did not have junior high offerings. We were able to bring junior high sports back this fall, 586 students, and high school participation was up from 1221 last year to 1,339 students in our high school programming this year across our 13 athletic departments, with 94% of our students remaining academically eligible for participation. Health and safety COVID protocols remained in place and were stringent and strict at all of our schools. We did have 13 teams go on pause, which aligns to similar numbers to this time last year. And we've recently increased our collaboration with the environmental and school health team with Angie Maddox and Tony, who are supporting athletics even more. And we're excited about some upcoming and updated procedures through athletics as it pertains to COVID. Next slide. Growth. Soccer. We added soccer. Some of our schools in the district, boys and girls soccer programs, as you can see here at Aiken. I'll pause so Board Member Bolton can say swoop. Swoop. There we go. All right, and we've got girls soccer at West High and soccer at Gamble. And excited about some more growth, partnership internal to the district on the ability to grow esports. We know this is booming across the country right now with scholarship opportunities. Started collaboration with Jeremy Gallahue surrounding the IT portion, Mike Turner on the career tech, and then Amy Randolph and myself have made a visit to Northern Kentucky University as a partnership there. But really excited about the potential growth of esports. Next slide. We are on to state tourney. We've got the most teams in CPS history that advanced to the football playoffs, with two that have won a playoff game. Withrow Tigers that won their first playoff game in the history of the school and are advancing to play tonight at Piqua. And Taft Senators will host tomorrow at Stargell Stadium. If any board members or any representatives would like to attend, just let me know. And cross country, a very strong season from Aiken, once again a swoop, and CMAC champions, and had a female runner finish second at districts and qualify in regionals. And Walnut Hills still have a few runners that will represent our district at the state meet on Saturday. Congratulations to all those programs. Next slide. The AAA pathway continues to grow within the district to offer support and resources to our student athletes. We have a AAA pathway coach at all our 7 through 12 buildings, checking grades of students and offering them those support and resources, helping assist with study tables, getting them into things such as our ACT boot camp, which we are providing and looking to remove all barriers, like Izzy Rudnick mentioned from his programs, as it pertains to ACT programming. Continuing to partner with Emily Maroney and the college team Beyond the Tassel with some live sessions coming up, and then an Honest Game platform that would provide NCAA eligibility support and resources for all of our student athletes. Next slide. Oh, can I go back to the slide previous? Just really want to make sure that I recognize activities beyond the classroom here and the collaboration and partnership with the AAA Pathway and the support with our AAA Pathway manager, Colleen. Thank you. Next slide. Our highlight and promote, always want to increase the level of support and highlighting our student athletes. We brought back our Athlete of the Month program. You can see our September Athlete of the Month winners there. We have increased the Beyond the Game videos and have supplied all of our schools with full huddle access to be able to make highlight tapes to help them on the recruiting process and help them as the coaches look to develop teams for athletic contests, and then increase athletics website and presence on social media. Next slide. These are October and November Athlete of the Month winners. Very excited. All of these student athletes receive awards, get a highlighted video that's posted on our YouTube page. This year has been pretty cool. We've been doing a surprise where Ricky Miller, our assistant, walks into the school at a classroom or lunchroom and surprises the kid with their award, and we get that all on tape. Those have been pretty awesome to publish and watch. And of course, all these students are eligible for the Dave Durker Scholarship at the end. Next slide. Be remiss if I didn't mention our new office, the Office of Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, led by Assistant Superintendent Murphy. And some of those are our initiatives surrounding mental health and nutrition, where we've started a pilot with a few sports psychologists that are going in and doing some one-on-one work with some of our student athletes, looking to support them with mental health supports, as well as nutritional support, and really identifying ways that we can help support our coaches in supporting our student athletes. Beyond the Game is our kind of twist of the Beyond the Tassel, where we're looking at deeper things in athletics, including a session next Wednesday, November 10th on Facebook Live, where we talk about mental health. We also have a partnership with Gatorade, La Roses, and Cisco, where we provide nutritional items to our student athletes. We've increased engagement through POSUP with all of our coaches, skip level meetings that I'll meet with all the coaches, surveys that will be launched to parents and student athletes to get feedback on their athletic programs. I'm very excited that we had our first advisory council meeting this week, a couple days ago. We had it pre-COVID, and we're excited to bring it back. That is a brainchild of our good friend, Chris Nelms, who shared with me very early on in my time as athletics manager that, Josh, you really need to get an athletics advisory council and get all of your stakeholders at the table. Happy to say we had over 50 parents, coaches, student athletes, AAA Pathway coaches, counselors, athletic directors, all at the same meeting talking about the future of athletics and extracurriculars in our district. It was powerful. And of course, we'd like to close with our Speak Up and Speak Out initiative that was launched last year. We're implementing this at every school in the district as a peer leadership collaborative, and also with a collaboration with Emily Campbell and her team to launch a Adulting 101 life skills course that of course would include financial literacy as well. Next slide. Thank you for all that you do. Board Member Bowers, it's been an honor to work with you and receive all the support and advocacy for athletics and extracurriculars in your time. You will be missed, but you always have a place at any of our athletic events. Just let me know, and I got you. That's all I got.
No, I'm going to hold you to that.
You got it. I'm here.
Comments.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for giving me that opportunity to say swoop as many times. I appreciate it. Purple and white, baby. Two things. If you just touched on it about the advisory group, which I think is great, talking about the future of athletics. I wonder if it would be possible to have them or have you help lead them in a discussion about those aspects of our campuses that do not currently have the kinds of athletic uh, space, athletic fields, or what have you. Because more and more in policy committee, we're talking about campuses rather than just talking about buildings. So from a standpoint of a campus, what kinds of athletic spaces could be created or are needed both for our students and also the community? I think that would be really helpful, and that is part of the future, because I know facilities and everything else limit sometimes what we're able to do, and how often we can do it and with how many. So I'd be interested if y'all, it's your choice to do that or not. It's not an assignment, but I think that would be interesting, and it would help guide us as we worry about and talk about growth. I also, and you referenced the chair is going to be leaving us from service at this time, but I do think that that being the case, there's going to be 3 new board members in January. That hasn't happened since 2008, which is a tremendous change when you have 3 new, and you certainly are missing 3 great board members. Somehow, if you have a historian or archivist or whoever that can actually even show where we were 15 years ago, or even 10, if that's how far back, heck, 5, where we were with athletics. Because they're not going to know the growth that has occurred through these partnerships. It's phenomenal. And everybody's going to be doing a lot of history work as board members think of something and whatever and don't know. But if you do have somebody, and I know your predecessor left a lot of kind of records and historic stuff, and the Hall of Fame people have great, I just think that would be very useful if there's sort of a look back as well as that look forward. Again, it's not an assignment, it's just a suggestion. Is that okay, Madam Chair? Because, we can't really assign. It's a recommendation. But I think both of those things would be really helpful.
I agree, and I've thought about that in the past as well. I can definitely do a overview, look back, and look forward for the new board members. I think on the 5 years ago, that's obviously an easy one because 5 years ago is when I started, and I think I do have the ability to share where we were and then where we are now, and kind of some vision to where we're going. Also, as you say that, I don't know if board member Bowers would be interested, but as you were speaking, board member Bolden, it did sound like having board member Bowers a part of our advisory council would be kind of cool. And if you'd be open to that and available, we'd love to have you a part of the athletics advisory council.
Wonderful idea.
I welcome that opportunity, Mr. Harden. Mr. Lindy, I know you missed the presentation, but do you have anything that you want to ask?
If Josh said it, I'm sure it was right.
All right, Josh, I just have a couple of things. First of all, congratulations on the increased number of students via the ABC or activities beyond the classroom. And I love all of the Beyond the Tassel Facebook Live. I watch all of those excellent programs. And I'm most focused on congratulating you on the mental health talk with athletes. And recently in the news, I think there was a professional football player who's stepping away from playing football to take care of his mental health. And I don't think we talk about that enough in the athletic arena. So I want to congratulate you on having bringing that to the forefront for our student athletes. And the only question I do have is POSUP surveys and advisory council. How does that, when that data is collected and that feedback is collected, how is that rolled out to the board and to the community once that information is taken up?
Yeah, so we have not done, so our POSUP, we determined that there was a lot of POSUP happening over in the district over the last few years, and we didn't want to confuse parents with too much POSUP, knowing that they were getting from the school. So our POSUP is actually coach engagement. So we put the POSUP out on a weekly basis to our coaches to assess what's happening at their schools and their programs, how we can support them more. We ask them some specific questions that pop up throughout the year. You guys were talking about student athlete and student vaccine mandates and those things, and we shared and requested some feedback from our coaches on that in a timely fashion. But so our POS-up has not been for the parents, but has been for the coaches, where we'll engage the parents outside of our advisory council will be through some end of season surveys that we will be doing, and those have not occurred yet. But we have developed some of those plans and internally talked with our athletic directors and shared with Assistant Superintendent Murphy some of the feedback that we received. But on the coach side, on the POS-up, we usually receive the feedback and then engage our coaches in our schools with things that may come up in those POS-up surveys.
Do you do any surveys for your student athletes through POS-up or surveys?
No, we're using and we'll be using a new platform to do surveys with our student athletes and parents that we have not launched.
Okay. And I just want to comment, I like that gator. I think that's a gamble sign back there in the background next to a different sign in your window. Is that correct? Yeah, I got
all of our past state championship winners back here, as well as all of the state championship rings. I think this is a Gamble Gator track ring back there.
Very nice, very nice. Any other comments from the committee members? I love sports just as much as I love the arts. Okay, thank you, Mr. Harden, for your presentation.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, we on to our Vision 2020 schools update now. Ms. Bolton.
Yes, thank you. This again is really just a kind of a question on two areas of interest for me, and also as we worry about growth and what have you. Wanted to ask a couple of questions. We started the Vision 2020 back in, I guess, school year 2016-17 or thereabouts. And it's now, as I understand it, completed, and that we've gone through the cycle, and wanted to know when we do a review of the Vision 2020 schools to see if indeed they are continuing to offer and an authentic instructional program in those areas, whether it's environmental or whether it's business or what have you. And it would be great to know how you all feel about it. Do things have to be changed? Do they need more support in those curricular areas or focus? I think that would be helpful as to inform the budget. And I think it would be great, sort of a renewing of our interest in that. Because I think it's at least several years ago when we first started, we had almost immediate results of increase in enrollment and also higher achievement in the first several that we did. And I just think it would be a good idea to go back and review all of them if we can. I think I'd be really interested in what y'all think is going on there. The other piece I'm interested in, and this is coming up in a number of different committees, so I just am bringing it here, and that is if we really had it, if we had a real list that we all agree on as to what schools are magnet schools and what schools are Montessori schools, what schools are neighborhood schools, because there's some confusion, and also the impact of the high schools of choice, because I think some people believe because they're high schools of choice, they are magnets, and by board policy, they're not. I mean, because magnets get special this and special that, so just one sheet list would really be helpful to figure that out, and whether or not superintendent, a previous superintendent, Mitchell, had said that the qualifier for Silverton and Schroeder and Roberts for Paideia if they weren't doing it, I think she had interest in ending calling it that. And did that actually take place? And also real simple, they're still calling Aiken something that it isn't. A lot of it, when we produce old documents or new charts, it's still being called Aiken University or something that people haven't even. And I know that we spent 3 years in this committee, 3 years ago in this committee, the administration brought all the lists to us and we settled on what the names were. And I don't know that it's been updated into when we produce other new documents. I think there's still some programming that needs to be updated. I know it sounds stupid, but this is all about marketing and all about authenticity of curriculum.
So just for clarity, Committee Member Bolden, you would like to an action item for Emily to be to send us the information. Is that something?
And Madam Chair, it could just be a memo. It
Yes,
doesn't have
a
to
memo.
wait till the next
Right.
meeting. It's just something the general board probably would like to see or know or whatever.
We can certainly provide a memo regarding the request that you just made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Other biz, doing our, we did complete our interim superintendent 90-day performance eval. It was a qualitative, but there was some discussion being brought back to this committee about next steps, preferably or ideally based on a contract, for it to be a quantitative evaluation. And I wanted to talk to this committee about if that's the next steps that you would like to take.
Mrs. Bowers knows that this is a topic I care a lot about. I appreciate it. I feel so genuinely torn on this, truly, because I feel pulled in some different directions. On the one hand, I do really deeply believe it's important for people to know what they're being evaluated on in advance, and get to see it and get to weigh in on it, and then have no surprises. Mm-hmm. So part of me is deeply committed to that. I also know there are some things in the contract that we committed to for the interim. I think we should make good on our word. The other thing is, this is an enormously challenging, weird time to try and be doing all those things. And I want to be empathic to that and not pretend that we're in a moment that's different from the moment we're actually in. And that leaves me a little confused and genuinely unsure of the right thing to do next.
Well, do you have any comments on that?
And it was based on what she had outlined as her focus. It also, unfortunately, even began with verbs that were really about trying to do something or working towards something. So it became more of a statement of status as to where we are on something. It was not evaluative. We didn't have enough data to actually do the evaluation. And I think that's my point. I think moving ahead, I think if people are interested, we need to do what she asked of us and what we've asked of ourselves.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I hear make good of our agreement and contract, moving forward, producing or creating a some type of collaborative, quantitative rubric that would be collaborative between this committee and the interim superintendent.
Yeah, I don't have to do this, but I wanted to offer if it's helpful. One thing I could try to do is between now and our next meeting, circulate a draft to the two of you, just as something. Here's something to react to. You can like it, you can not like it, but then by the time we meet next time, we would have gotten the chance to just get feedback from everybody on what you like or don't like. I'm very open to a different way forward. If you have a different idea you like better, I'm also totally open to it.
So just to be clear, you want to present a draft without the collaboration of what we're being, being like the interim superintendent being a part of those of the outcome measures.
No, not so much that. Just like it wouldn't have any numbers on it. It would just be like here's a fill in the blank that we could use with her. But truly, I'm not tied. If you have a different idea, I'm very open to it.
Committee member Bolton.
You know, obviously time is of the essence.
Mm-hmm.
Things can change very quickly. I would say, in fairness, previous superintendents have been able to help the Student Achievement Committee design their evaluations. They have largely determined how they wanted to be measured. And, you know, a real professional will set higher standards for themselves than we could ever think of. I mean, that's my belief, and I think all of our folks are like that. So I do think it needs to be something that our current interim superintendent can help design as to at least what she's trying to measure. And actually, she's told us a lot of stuff and has produced and published the things that she's emphasizing. So I think it should include that. I think previous practice for a superintendent has been, they've been able to look at a draft or submit some kind of a draft, which would help us.
We could start with it. I mean, that sounds great.
So I think with that, but I think you should be the person to take the point on this issue.
That's fine. I'm happy to do it. But what I hear, just to make sure I hear you correctly, it's
sure.
Give her an opportunity, present something to us at the next meeting, so that she's proposing a set of outcomes.
Or before, and indeed, the committee can also
That's
go into
idea.
Executive session.
That's a great idea.
So that she is not necessarily, we've allowed people to do that. Some of them want it in executive session, some don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Knowing we're in a search, if I would advise her to do it in executive session, so she doesn't give any tips to anybody else that might be applying. But I think that would be, just follow what we've done before.
Mm-hmm. So the action would be, Mr. Lundy, that you're going to present maybe that suggestive thing, or have the suggestive rubric or items to be measured. In between, right. Mm-hmm. And then we are going to have a conversation, or present that also to the superintendent, or have a conversation with her about what she would like to be added or deleted or changed in that. Correct? Between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, what I was going to do is, between now and the next meeting, start with the interim to get her ideas. Use that to share with you two.
Before the next meeting.
All before the next second.
Thank you.
Does that sound okay? Great.
Any other comments on the other business? I don't have any other. All right. Now we are moving to the hearing of the public. I have my script. So members of the public who wish to speak may do so by clicking the chat button now. The chat feature will be open for your request for 5 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation to the district for 3 minutes, not 5 minutes, for 3 minutes. Please submit your name, your affiliation to district, your school community, your topic, and your contact information if you want a direct response to any questions you may have. While we're waiting on them, we have some guests in the building who would like to come up and speak. Ms. Kendra Phillips. Anybody else in the room? And then after that, CFT President Julie Sellers. Yes, Ms. Phillips, please step up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. I want to come and speak to you about the fact that teachers have spoken up about the harm these 2-week cycle assessments are having on the learning environment. I was glad to hear Emily Campbell speak about the importance of feedback from Curriculum Council. One of the documents that you're going to receive is a resolution developed by the ELA Council asking for flexibility in using these new 2-week cycle assessments. They are not recommending no formative assessment. I want to be clear about that. They wholeheartedly agree that formative assessment is a key component to providing our students with the instruction they need to succeed. They are asking to use assessments that provide data which truly informs their instruction and doesn't distract so much instructional time. Teachers have stressed how important it is to, after this pandemic, to have time for students to participate in rich learning activities. And they don't agree that these testing sessions are that at all. Our ESL Council has also drafted a similar resolution regarding the 2-week cycle assessments created by the district, citing how the assessment plan is interfering with their ability to service the students who need their help. At our interdisciplinary council meeting, all the council chairs spoke up in support of asking for this flexibility. I hope the administration will acknowledge this wealth of teacher feedback and give them professional space to meet the needs of their students. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, we do not have anyone online interested in speaking this evening.
You said no one?
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. Sellers, thank you. Ms. Sellers will be next.
Good evening, and thank you for having this session open to the public. First, I would like to say I'm glad that we were able to hear about the Evanston story and how they turned it around. I think that when I was a teacher in the classroom, we were doing very much of the same work that they were doing. We have had a grant for peer-to-peer walkthroughs that the district which we wanted to expand from a pilot, which the district absolutely said no way. And it was beneficial, as Stacy presented this evening. We're doing it. We saw great increases, but we have 4 principals in 5 years. You have to have some kind of continuity, and leadership is key, that you have strong leaders who know how to collaboratively run a building and have a service leadership model. All schools, I believe, have a culture of high expectations. I think that peer-to-peer walkthroughs are beneficial. We had a whole model that was coming from a national think tank, and it was through a special grant that AFT provided. And you have to have supports for that to be successful. We did do much about the data gathering. All teachers want to have data to drive their instruction. Now, from my understanding, that at Evanston, those teachers were making those mock assessments. When we were doing it, teachers were making those mock assessments based on the standards, what they were teaching, so that it was really an assessment that would drive the instruction. We had flexible skill groups similar to what Stacy was talking about. They were done. We did ours. We did much shorter. We did a real quick assessments about every week, every 2 weeks. Evanston, I think they do theirs about every 6 weeks. But what I am saying is that what is being rolled out now with these assessments, especially the ELA assessments, they are totally damaging to kids. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. And we have gotten member feedback from grades all the way from kindergarten through 12th grade. We've had over 500 teacher survey responses. We've had chapter meetings, curriculum council meetings, membership meetings, executive council meetings about this. As some people in the public are saying, this is a Julie Sellers initiative. No, it isn't. This is being driven by the teachers. And the teachers
are feeling like they are being put into an unreasonable situation that is damaging to their children. I want to give you some examples of how the assessments are not appropriate. For first grade, and I shared this with the superintendent, and I think she shared it with Emily, that they had a code read, and it was called "My Librarian is a Camel." Interestingly enough, in the Common Core anthology of journeys, which was taken away from teachers, "My Librarian is a Camel" was an anchor text in the 4th grade. It's a first grade reader. The story has a Lexile score of 980. Not my decision. That's based on the Lexile scores of the story, and you can go to any Lexile website to do that. On the Lexile bands, kindergarten and first grade should not be doing these types of things. They don't have a Lexile score for kindergarten and first grade. Second and third grade is 450 to 725. Fourth, fifth grade band is 645 to 845. And 6th through 8th band is 860 to 1010. Now, teachers have told me that kids who did not, first grade teachers crying, that they have kids in their class who didn't really go to kindergarten, even though kindergarten is mandatory. They are in their classroom. They didn't have any of the kindergarten requirements, but they were placed in first grade with their peers. But according to the state law, kindergarten is mandatory, but you don't have to start kindergarten when you're 5. You can start kindergarten when you're 6. Many suburban and wealthy districts, kids don't start kindergarten when they're 5. They wait until it's developmentally appropriate for them, and sometimes it's when they're 6. Just like all kids don't learn to walk at the same age, all kids don't talk at the same age, and all kids don't learn to read at the same age. But we are giving this 980 score Lexile as a cold read to first graders. And when this third grade lesson, when you look at it, it goes into how all the prepping that you need to do before you even begin reading. It's an informational text, which is already more difficult. It goes into all of the vocabulary that those students must have mastery of. The vocabulary in this story are words like isolated, impassable, devour, extremes, obtain. Those are not first grade vocabulary words. I'm sorry, but I do have a background in reading, and I have done my research on what we have done with Dibbles, and teachers have tons of information at those grade levels through the MAP, the crawl, the Dibbles, the iReady, and those are adaptive tests that show growth over time. These show no growth over time, so it's not anything that can even be used for the teacher's evaluation. All these walkthroughs are, and all these assessments that they want, they're an assessment of teachers' compliance. And teacher compliance is not what's going to hold our best teachers in this district. I want to give you a third grade code test. It was vocabulary that was probably high school level vocabulary on a third grade test. I can send you those vocabulary words. But I could probably give the test out to most of the adults in this district, and they may not pass it. The 12th grade ELA test. And this is what really killed me, because our strongest ELA teachers are teaching in those 12th grade ELA classes. And it was a 19-page cold read of Shakespeare with 12 questions. The AP teacher for ELA at Walnut Hills. Said College Board would never approve that even for a AP class. It's not appropriate. It has to be broken down. You have to talk about it line by line, section by section. I don't know hardly any adults, if you weren't a high school ELA person or a college major for English, who could do a cold read of Shakespeare and answer 12 questions in one sitting. Teachers are not against assessments, but if you heard what the Evanston teacher said, they make their assessments. They are mock assessments. When we did it, it was called, prior to EI, it was called Brazos Sport and was out of Texas. We made our assessments so we knew what we were focusing on so we could adjust our instruction based on that. But if you go through and read those questions, those responses from teachers, you will see the anxiety that teachers are living. And there is a shortage of teachers nationally. So we cannot just be the training grounds for teachers to go other places. We must stabilize our schools. We must stabilize our staffing so that we can make the improvements that we need to make for our kids. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. There are still kids having to stay home for the 10 or 14 days for COVID. Both of my grandchildren got COVID. One got it from school and brought it home to her mother, who was vaccinated. She's out for 10 days. My two granddaughters are out for 10 days. And then they come back to something like this. I'm sorry, but it's not meant. We should be giving wraparound services to our students' mental health and our teachers' mental health. And this is not the way it happens. There are ways for it to happen that's appropriate. Teachers were left out of these processes. They've tried to go through the proper channels to make the changes necessary, and it's not available. They can't do it. I think that there are teachers currently being threatened by their principals because the principals are being told that you better get all your teachers on board because 2 of their 3 goals are around these 2-week cycles of assessments. We are setting up a culture of bullying within our district. And that's not what's good for kids, and it's not what's good for adults. And if we don't begin to give teachers more autonomy, we will end up losing teachers, which we cannot afford to do. I was just recently an observant for the International Summit on Teaching and Learning. And every country had their educational leaders there. They had the ministers of education. They had secretaries of education of each country. And they had the union presidents from each country. And what they were saying was, what we have been doing with this over-testing has been wrong, and we must all take responsibility for this. The state has given a waiver on testing, tying it to the evaluations, but now the district is just layering on. They didn't take any tests away when they put these in. This is just another layer. The systems aren't talking to each other. They're having to hand score. There's paperwork upon paperwork upon paperwork. That has nothing to do with the teacher's lesson plan. It has nothing to do with the teacher giving authentic feedback to students. And the kids are getting this message that testing is not important. And they go into their power school. They're spending all this time on this. They go into power school. It's not a grade in your power school. The kids have already figured out, I don't need to worry about it because it's nothing that's going to count. And until we recognize this and it's the mental well-being of teachers. Until that is improved, we're not going to improve the mental well-being of students. And I know, Pam, you've worked in mental health for your whole career. I know that you understand that. I know that you have seen some of this. This is not even as effective as what EI was, which wasn't effective. But the teachers do understand the importance of using data to drive their instruction. Teachers do understand that I need to know where my kids are so I can move forward. But every other week on things that they haven't even been exposed to, and they're not even appropriate assessments, I'm sorry. Social studies, they didn't have the curriculum to pull from. And so they have allowed teachers to make those assessments. And I do believe that the social studies assessments are somewhat better. I think the math may be somewhat effective, but every other week, they're not even given enough time to test. And it is impacting the number of SDI minutes that students can receive if they have an IEP or if they have a WEP, or our English language learners. That extended time that they're given, they're pulled out of the classroom, and if it's one day, they're out for 2 days. And it's not just for one subject, it's for every subject. It is teachers, that we have a teacher who's teaching intermediate, who's self-contained, and every other week she's expected to do this for all the subjects without any kind of assistance. There's not data people working with the teachers. And I mean, if you want all of this stuff, teachers are going to need a secretary or somebody who's going to do all this work, because at this point, it's just, they can't do the job if they work 12 hours a day. And that's the reality.
And I'm going to stop you, but I thank you for your information.
Can I make one more point? There is someone from Save Us, a rep, who was working with some of our teachers. They were asked if they can use this, if they can generate questions, and they were told, they admitted off the record, that they don't have the ability to produce what teachers need through these assessments. They can't guarantee that the data is the data that teachers want or need. And there is no connection to any of the standards with some of these assessments. The class as a whole, they get information for the whole class. They can't even put it down to individual students. If teachers use GradeCam, they can do through a scan chart, they can get the information of student by student and how every student responded, where they can then create those flexible skill groups. These tests can't do that. So
thank you, Ms.
I
Sellers.
think that we really have to have a stronger look at this as we're moving forward, because teachers are pretty much not.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Right. If there's no other business before us, I adjourn the November 5th Student Achievement and Instructional Performance Committee meeting. Thank you.